Welcome to the Fabulous Lifestyle Radio Show. Tune in for a vibrant mix of fashion, finance, and life's essential foundations. Join us for expert interviews, insightful discussions, and empowering insights to elevate your lifestyle. From fashion trends to financial tips and personal growth strategies, we've got you covered. So grab your headphones and get ready to be inspired. Tune in now to the Fabulous Lifestyle Radio Show and embark on this exciting journey with us.
Welcome back to the Fabulous Lifestyle Radio Show. I am your host, Teresa Lawrence. We are here with Nancy Wright, and when we left off, we were discussing going into a grocery store and focusing on buying foods that God made, not that man made. Mm-hmm. And I want to expand on that because sugar is a big deal. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people try to avoid it, and it seems like there are all these mystery things in reading about it. What are some quick tips that you can tell us?
Well, I have also a great story for you, and that's a tip. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's
all right.
right.
So Starbucks is everywhere, and my daughter loves Starbucks. And so I'm going to focus a little bit on misleading claims, because they'll say there's no sugar, or they'll say sugar-free. But is it really? So I'm a little neurotic. And so when I went through the drive-thru of Starbucks getting my daughter, because I have to pick my battles with her, she said, but Mom, it's sugar-free Starbucks. Okay, so I know in my heart that's not sugar-free. So I asked the nice little barista, can I take a look at that bottle? And I flipped it over, and the first ingredient was water. And then they had some other things in there. But what I hooked onto was artificial flavors and natural flavors, because there's a lot of label loopholes, and the FDA doesn't regulate what's in the United States.
So you found natural flavors.
Natural flavors, and I found maltodextrin. See, it's hard to pronounce. I always say if you can't pronounce it, don't put it in your body. Maltodextrin, which is a sugar substitute. So it's sugar. And when I tasted it, it tasted so incredibly sweet. So I'm like, wow, they have everybody trained here thinking it's sugar-free when it's not. They can just disguise it. And so the front of the packaging is always marketing. That's the lie. The truth is always on the back. And there was maltodextrin and natural flavors, which I know, what the heck is that, right? Who knows what that is?
What are the other names of sugar that people should look for on the label?
Here's a good one. I just talked about this yesterday. Everyone's familiar with log cabin corn syrup, log cabin syrup.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Right, okay. So on the front, there's a yellow label on it that says no high fructose corn syrup. But if you flip it over, the first ingredient is corn syrup. So to answer your question, Teresa, corn syrup is one. There's 250 different names. Corn syrup, molasses, agave syrup.
Even molasses?
Rice syrup, it's all forms of sugar. Yeah, there's a lot of it. So corn syrup was the first ingredient. And then there were other words, sodium hexamesophate. See, I can't pronounce it. So I tell people, if you can't pronounce it, don't put it in your body. Why not just get Kirkland? Maple syrup. See, maple syrup came from a tree that God made. So it's really simple. Just go for the foods that God made, not that man made, or go for the foods that grew on a plant and not in a plant. There you go. Right?
Yes. So in terms of sugar, if people are trying to cut down on sugar, I have two-part questions here. One, how much sugar do we actually need? And the second one is, if you're cutting down on sugar, what do you recommend we do?
Okay, so to answer your first question, which by the way is a great question, for women and men it's different. We shouldn't have more than 6 teaspoons of sugar. Now, how do you know that? This is where it gets tricky, because the food manufacturers put things in our food and they want us to be confused. When you look at the label of something, it's not going to say teaspoons, it's going to say grams. So take a look at the grams. For example, Gatorade, or like a Red Bull or whatever energy drinks are called, very high, Powerade, I think, very high in sugar. If it's 27%, you divide it by 4. So what's 27 divided by 4? 8 or 7? That's 7 teaspoons of sugar in one serving. Women shouldn't have more than 6 teaspoons of sugar. Men shouldn't have more than 10. It's really 9.5. That's how much sugar we're having. And we wonder why they're calling this epidemic diabesity. And they're seeing it in young kids because they're especially being preyed on by 2 big companies. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and
shocker.
So the next part was, how do you, if you're trying to reduce sugar,
Right.
what do you do?
What do you do? When I coach people, I'm thinking of this one gal in particular. The way that I was trained is you really have to meet them where they're at, but liquid sugar, which is the ice cream, which is very hard for people, ice cream or juices like those acai berries, liquid sugar is the first thing we try to get them to throttle back on. It would be liquid sugar. So that's what we try to do. And I give them substitutes. So can I tell you my example of ice cream?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So if you get Tillamook or Breyers or Dreyer's ice cream, I think it's now like $6. It's very, very expensive. And you're going to see probably cream and then liquid sugar and milk fat. You're going to see sugar in the first 3 ingredients. By the way, a good rule of thumb is first in is most in. So if sugar or salt is the first 3 ingredients, just know you're mainly eating sugar and salt. So I love ice cream too, and it was really hard. But when I throttled back, 32 pounds came off. So
That's exactly where I was going. I was going that was my next question.
Yeah,
Part of your bio says when food sensitivities and weight gain.
That's right.
Had her napping at 2 in the afternoon, you became the sugar busting fairy.
Right.
When did that happen in your life?
It was really around COVID, honestly, and that was hard to do. But because I had bad bugs, I won't get too graphic, but dysbiosis, so it just means gut imbalance. And your gut is your second brain, and so then that led to anxiety and everything else and brain fog. So I've cut out gluten, and I still eat sugar, but the healthy sugars, the fruit sugars and that kind of thing. I just felt better, and I wasn't napping at 2 in the afternoon, but sugar makes us fat. So when you cut out the sugar, you can lose a lot of weight. Basically, I had to break up with Mr. Ben and Jerry. That's what I say, Chunky Monkey, and that was hard, and the chocolate. So I broke up with Ben and Jerry, and I started dating Mr. Nice Cream, which I make every day in my food processor, or you can do it.
What does that mean?
I know. I talk about that all the time. If you have a high-speed blender or a Cuisinart food processor, put your favorite frozen fruit in there. For me, it's bananas. So I do frozen bananas, and it's just 1 or 2 ingredients. I kid you not. So not only is it 1 or 2 ingredients, it's a lot healthier. These are words I can pronounce. I always say 10 or less is best. It's also saving me a fortune, and I'm not buying that super expensive ice cream, right? So your favorite fruit. If you have high blood sugar and you have to watch your sugar, berries, because berries are low in the sugar. So berries and a little coconut milk, and that's all I need. Well, no, sometimes I put chocolate chips on it. So banana and ice cream is whatever you want it to be. Just Google it. It's just probably 2 or 3 of your favorite ingredients.
I love the smoothie aspect of that all. The healthy smoothie in the morning.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you say you help middle-aged women with type 2 diabetes reduce their blood sugar, you're basically going off of your own experience and your coaching skills. And can you give me an example of a client with that you help through a process?
Well, coaching is kind of involved and complex because, everybody's different. And it's definitely not linear. It's like you go 3 steps forward, 6 steps back. But what people need to know is, I always say, what the heck is in our food? And we do a pantry makeover. So what that looks like.
That's fabulous.
I know. And I do it virtually, mainly, or I could do it in person, but it's fun to do it virtually. I did it for
pantry makeover. I've never heard that.
Pantry makeover, yeah, or a kitchen clean out. I like pantry makeover. So I was trained by a pediatrician in traffic light eating. How basic is that, right? So green, yellow, and red light foods. So we go into their refrigerator, their freezer, and their pantry. Their syrups, their marinades, their ketchup. And after I teach them hidden names of sugar, and I do the label reading nutrition guide of what to look for and words you can pronounce, and try to keep the sodium and the sugar below 20%, we go through and dissect their food. And we go through it, their items, their canned soups, whatever's in their items. Or they'll take 3 or 5 of their favorite items, like ketchup. And I also talk about, in my label reading, the 3 no's. And the 3 no's is no high fructose corn syrup. And that has been known, that's the leading culprit for obesity. It spikes your blood sugar. It's worse than table sugar, they're saying, because it leads to obesity, which can lead to diabetes. So no high fructose corn syrup, no trans fat, which is that's hydrogenated oil. That's what's in Skippy peanut butter, a lot of peanut butters, except the Kirkland brand at Costco. That's where you want to get your peanut butter. And no artificial colors and dyes. And that's what's in Kellogg's and General Mills, that's what's for kids. You know, they put them in yogurts, you know, the SpongeBob yogurts, the colorful yogurts, the waffles, the birthday cake waffles that are so pretty, the mermaid waffles are so pretty, but the first 3 ingredients are artificial colors and dyes. And can I expand on that a little bit?
Of course.
What that does for a child especially, because that's who they're targeting it.
The dyes.
The dyes. It's called like yellow, Red Lake, yellow 7, red 40, yellow lake. It's also in a lot of energy drinks and sodas and candies and cotton candy. But ADHD is the number one diagnosis that pediatricians see. I think it's 1 out of 6. ADHD is really on the rise. Now, for a kid that can't sit still in a classroom and they're trying to learn, why in the world would you give a kid artificial colors and dyes? And the parents don't know. So it's my mission to get out there and educate these parents and these kids and adults because they don't know. And they'll see it when they walk into Target because those food manufacturer companies are so smart in marketing. They know when the payday is. They know when you walk into Target or Walmart, you're going to turn right. They know to position the foods that they want to sell, you know, put it on sale. So we buy it, and we buy it over and over and over.
And then I have a question about the high fructose corn syrup.
Yes.
Because it's in everything.
It's in everything, especially your ketchup. So for your listeners, they're probably going to go look at their ketchup.
Is there a ketchup that
Yes,
doesn't have it?
yes, and I don't think it's Heinz. I don't know off the top of my head, but yes, you're going to pay a little bit more, I think. But yes, there is.
And then is there a bread that doesn't have high fructose?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm gluten-free, so I use the cooked sourdough bread, which is quite expensive. But where you're going to really see high fructose corn syrup is in candy, in sodas. And so, you know, when back to your question about what do you do for your clients? And I said liquid. We try to get them off, and I did mention sodas, but I mentioned ice cream. High fructose corn syrup is going to be in sodas, and diet sodas are just as bad. So it's in sodas, it's in candies, it's in when you buy a cake in the bakery and just flip it over, the beautiful frosting, you're going to see high fructose in bakery sections, especially. Candy, bakery items, cupcakes, that's where you're going to see it.
But I'm sure that there are places that have cupcakes and all of those things without high fructose corn
You just
syrup.
have to go look, probably.
No, I think that market is going to grow.
Oh, absolutely. Well, make your own. Make your own. I follow a gal, the Food Babe, online. She's
The Food Babe.
The Food Babe. She's a food activist. Her name is Vani Hari. And I think she got like most influential women of the year, but she went after Chick-fil-A and Starbucks and got them to remove a lot of their harmful items. And so I've really learned how to bake my own food. I mean, I have dark chocolate brownie probably sitting in my car right now because I love dark chocolate. I'm like, there's three.
Your bio does say you love chocolate.
I even have a chocolate labradoodle. That's how much I love chocolate. Yeah. So make it yourself, and there's so many good recipes out there. So,
okay, so I'm loving this. Buy food made by God.
Mm-hmm.
Look at labels before you buy food, and make sure you can pronounce the names on the label.
Right.
And if you can't, don't buy it.
That's right. And another tip is 10 or less is good, 5 or less is better. Just the less, the best. So if you see an item that has 10 ingredients or less, 5, take the one that has 5. If I'm lazy and I don't want to make rice at home, which has no ingredient, Trader Joe's has a packaged rice. It just has 1 ingredient. That's the one you want. So less is always best, because then it doesn't have preservatives in it and all that other bad, harmful stuff that you definitely don't want to be putting in your body.
Well, thank you so much for all this information.
You're welcome.
Now it is time for a break. We'll be right
Welcome to the Fabulous Lifestyle Radio Show, where we talk about food, fashion, finance, and foundations of life. We are live on KCAA Radio Broadcasting Network. KCAA is affiliated with CNBC, NBC News, and NBC Sports. We are sponsored by Sheltered Studios, Fire Connect, and Building Solid Foundation.